Okay, and hello. So today we are on the real, the raw, the truth, the Red Rose Recovery podcast. And my name is Roland Bradshaw. I'm a team leader for Roots Community, part of the Red Rose work that I do. And with me, I have.
Hi, I'm Professor Stuart Maitland-Knibb. I am a medical doctor, consultant and GP working in various parts of healthcare.
Brilliant. And also, if you don't mind me saying, Stuart, you're also a star of the smaller screen. You've been on a few television programs.
Yeah, I've been on TV several times. Yeah, I wouldn't call me a star. More of a those other channels that you'll find eventually if you go through all the channels on Sky. But yeah, I've been on various TV channels, doing various things, all associated normally with helicopters.
Yes.
And the use of critical care helicopters. Helicopter emergency medical service is the full term for it.
Brilliant. Okay. I'll probably bring it a bit later in the conversation, but I did watch a clip of you helping a gentleman in one of those TV programs. I found it fascinating, not just the work you were doing, but also the manner in which you did so. But we'll touch on that a bit later, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I have a couple of questions that I'd like to use to kind of shape our conversation, if that's all right to ask you. Can I also say that, well, we know this, I believe it's public knowledge, but you're also somebody who previously had a history of substance misuse in your life?
Yeah, so my life started, pretty normally, but by the time I got to my teenage years, I was pretty much off the rails, and being asked to leave schooling establishments and being in a lot of trouble, including with the police, and being sucked into a lifestyle that also used drugs and alcohol to be part of that society. And unfortunately there was violence as well within that society. And I was there really from, I suppose, from the age of 12 to 20, 21, those sort of times in my life, where my life was just spiraling, and it wasn't each year that passed, it was progressively getting worse. And I was very lucky to break that cycle.
Yeah. And you broke that, as you say, around about 21 years old. Yeah, 21. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah. In fact, I can tell you exactly. I mean, I was fortunate enough to break that cycle, but I had a huge moment in my life where my mum died, and she died on October the 14th, 1991. And that was my turning point, or the beginning of my turning point, where I realized that my life was certainly something that I couldn't be proud of, and certainly something that she couldn't be proud of, and I needed to do something. Yeah. And I think that's the first step of recognizing that you're in trouble. When you recognize you've got to do something. Doing something is really difficult, though, and it depends. It's quite easy to be put off doing something, because you find then that there's a lot of barriers against you changing. People are quite happy to walk past trouble in the street. They're quite happy to look and chastise and have an opinion. But when somebody says, actually, I want to get out of this, society that chastises doesn't offer a reaching hand and say, I'll pull you out. It almost wants to push you back.
Yeah. We were just talking about, prior to starting recording, we were talking about stigma and kind of how society will often shun people. There's a phrase I really love within some of the recovery stuff I do, where we talk about, we don't shoot our wounded. In a sense, that goes on an awful lot, doesn't it? Via stigma and mistreatment of some of our more vulnerable society's members. So, do you mind me asking a question? Because we had an email conversation, and you described something in a phrase that I loved. You said that your substance misuse was a lurching cascade of events with darkness surrounding it. Can you expand a little more on what that was? You touched on the fact that there was criminality and violence involved. Can you expand a little more on it, Stuart?
Sure. Well, we're all creatures of habit, and regardless of what part of society we live in. And when you're in a place where life is not enjoyable, um, there is very little happiness and there's very little enjoyment. There's no sort of like normal things that people would get enjoyment about. There's no relaxation. You're constantly on your guard. You're constantly waiting for the next violent event to happen. You're constantly waiting for the next drama, if you like.
Yeah.
Taking alcohol, taking drugs actually feels really nice. And it is a break from what you are and where you are. And then it feels like it's, well, actually, this is what I should be doing. And
Yes.
it almost justifies the rest of your life and how bad the rest of your life feels. You do feel that we constantly compare ourselves to other people around us.
Yes.
And nobody's sitting there thinking everything's okay. There's always a voice in the back of your head going, this isn't good. But drugs and alcohol definitely take that voice away. And the more you take, the less chance of that voice coming back. And even when it does come back, the more you take, it's quieter. And in a way, that gives you peace. But obviously, that gives you peace for a short time until it's really got its claws into you, and then you're into this world where now you really can't break out.
Yeah. And I think, again, relating to some of our earlier conversation, that's kind of where I see the difference between substance misuse and addiction, in the sense that we can use substances and they can be a part of our lives, as we talked about before. And then at some point we cross an invisible line, or not always invisible, we cross a line into, this is my central focal point and I can't stop myself doing this despite wanting to stop doing this.
And I think people that have never done drugs or never done anything to excess don't really understand. They think it's the feeling that you get from these substances is initially in the start of it. It's not, you're not sitting in a abandoned shop doorway begging, and then you start drugs. It's going to be innocuous. It's something that happens in your life. You're at a party and you start.
Yes.
And you don't even think about anything other than, this feels really nice, good, warm, loving. Everything about it is great. It makes you feel good inside. It makes you feel better about yourself. It makes you feel better about your surroundings. And why wouldn't you do that? And then you go, but I know this is bad, so I won't do it again.
Yeah.
And then you do it again. And then you go, right, okay. And you check. There isn't anybody out there that isn't checking themselves and going, yeah, I'm doing that a bit too much, but it's okay because I'm in control. And people do believe they're in control. And it's not a malicious act. People seem to blame people and say, well, you got yourself into this.
Yeah.
What you think people start like that? You think people go, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll get to a point where I've got no money and my life is centered around getting my next hit, and I'm begging in this shop doorway, and that I actually think I'm going to die tonight, but I'll die on a high. Do people think that that's how it's? People voluntarily go down that. It's just not. This doesn't happen like that. And I think we're so judgmental in society.
Yeah, I think part of the solution is for society as a whole, which is a big shift. It's not something we can expect overnight, but for society to move away from shooting the wounded, to move away from that judging. Because if I have somebody who is judgmental, self-righteous, critical of my lifestyle choices, and I use the word choices quite lightly as well, because we maybe don't have as much choice as we think sometimes. But I feel that until society as a whole moves away from that, then more people are going to continue dying, less people are going to have the opportunity to get well. Because I'm not going to approach somebody who looks down on me, criticizes, judges me, and say, excuse me, I've been doing this thing that you judge, criticize, and despise. Please, will you help me with it? That doesn't happen.
I totally agree. I think what we need to do is we need to separate the person from the behavior. So you've got to remember that every time you see, I certainly try and do this very, very hard. Every time I see somebody who's at that point of critical addiction where their life is in the balance, and then the behavior towards me may be very volatile from a medical perspective, but I need to remember that person in front of me was a innocent child and a blank slate. And their life has created this behavior. Now I don't like the behavior that I'm seeing, but I've got to remember that below that is a person and a human being that has the same rights to be happy and the same ability to be happy as I do. And so judge the behavior as in, so like you don't have to like the behavior, but you have to remember the person behind it and invest in the person to get rid of the behavior. If you judge the behavior and the person as the same thing, then why would they change? Because you are just making them feel worse, and the drug makes them feel a little bit better at that point in their life. Not like it did at the beginning, but a little bit better. So they're going to go to that because you're definitely not making them feel better.
Yeah. I suppose this leads into really well into one of the next questions I wanted to ask Stuart, is that what kind of conditions do you feel are necessary for somebody to recover from a place of either substance misuse or addiction if it's progressed to that point? What sort of stuff can we do or can we hopefully provide that will enable people to get better?
So I think firstly, it's belief, and you've got to believe that it is achievable, and you've got to say to that person, this is achievable. You've got to give them that hope. And so if I believe in you, then that's, hopefully that's going to give you hope, and then you're going to believe that you can do it, and you're going to reflect that back to me, and together we're going to go through it. And it's got to be there's got to be a relationship. And that relationship at the start is almost a parental. It's a relationship where it's a nurturing relationship where you're going to get it wrong. I'm saying you. I'm not. I'm you.
That's okay.
So, you're going to get it wrong, and I'm going to get it wrong as well. But together, hopefully, I'm going to be the stable partner in the relationship, and you're going to go on a journey that's going to be bumpy. It's not going to be straightforward, but together and I'm going to hold your hand through that. And at some point, I'm going to stop holding you, and you're going to be on your own. But you've got the ability to come back to me at any point, and then and I'm going to push you back up again. And it's not going to be overnight, but it's going to be accepting. And all I need you to do is work with me and be honest with me, and I'll be honest with you. Not everybody's going to get through addiction. You've got to be honest with people as well and say, there is no magic bullet here. And this might not be hopefully this will work. We're going to do it, and this will be it. But you might also fall back into addiction. And now that's not failure. That's just a step back, and we're going to step forward again. And we might have to do that a few times, but we can do it. Yes. And that's what we've got to do. That's how I think it works anyway. You've got to give positivity, you've got to give opportunity, and you've got to give that ability for people to get it wrong and be okay with that. What we can't do is say, right, this is your opportunity, and if you mess up, then you're over. Because you're writing the narrative, you're creating the story.
Yeah. And there's a few bits of that, the stuff you were just saying, Stuart, that I think are really valuable. Nurturing, but also I believe, and this is only my opinion about parenting is about nurture, but also providing a moral framework, as it were, or guidance on. I heard some stuff that I thought was quite cool is if you try to be your children's friend whilst they are children, you probably won't like them as adults.
No,
And so nurture, yes, but not fluffy. There,
no,
nurture,
no.
real person,
Absolutely.
adult to adult.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this relationship, there are going to be, and I'll, set out the boundaries. These are the boundaries. And if you cross the boundaries, then that is eroding our relationship. And our relationship is not something where forgiveness is part of it. Whereas, every time you come at me or whatever, I'm not going to forgive you if you've stepped outside those boundaries. I will discuss it with you, and we can have a nurturing conversation with that and a grown-up conversation. But there are boundaries and there are limits, and you've got to be within that. And you may bounce off the sides, but there are going to be those limits, and we have to put those very strictly down. Otherwise, how are we moving forward?
Yes, totally. And I'm going to chuck some of my own kind of thoughts into this, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I tend to feel that the boundaries should be discussed prior to the activity.
Oh, yes.
As I've tried helping people previously in my own experience, not discuss the boundaries, expected them to read my mind, and then got irritated when they didn't abide by the invisible guidance.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and also, you're signing up to as an addict, you're signing up to a relationship with me. Well, of course, I've got to tell you what you're signing up to. It's a contract, and that contract, you have to understand that contract, and I have to understand what I'm doing, and you have to understand what I'm doing, what you're doing, and also I need to know what you're expecting me to do. And I need to be very clear on what you should be expecting, because I think expectation is something that we get very wrong on both sides of relationships. Where, well, I thought you were going to do this for me. Well, no. Well, now you've let me down. Well, no, I didn't let you down because I was never going to do that. Well, you didn't tell me that. It's got to be that sort of understanding at the start, and almost what I think is, okay, this is the deal. This is what it is. This is it in completeness. It's up to you now whether or not you take this time or you come back. But the deal will remain. The deal is not it's not buy one get one free. It's not limited offer. It's there, and it's there for when you're ready. But when you're ready, that's the deal. And if you fall off of that, then the deal will stop. As in, you will be outside the program and it will finish. But you can come back and we can go again. And and I think that's what we've got to do in society, is say that, and for it to not to be, we can't see harm reduction in the same way as we try to criminalize activities. There are some parts of behavior which need to be criminalized, and I'm not a believer in nobody should go to prison. That's not the case, and we all need to face the consequences for our actions. It doesn't excuse us, but it gives us a reason that we need to work on. And if we don't work on the reason, we're not correcting the problem. If somebody has committed a crime because of drug addiction, yes, they should face consequences for that crime, but those consequences must be intrinsically linked to their drug use. Otherwise, they're just going to carry on that behavior because we've not dealt with the problem and we've not accepted it.
Yeah. My own experience, again, relating to what we were talking about before, I would enter custody for crimes, and rightly, I should be bearing the consequences of those crimes. They were wrong. But I would go into custody and they would detox me and bang me in a cell with other people who were unwell, or quite often unwell. And then I would be turfed out weeks or months later, having made no rehabilitative adjustments to my thinking, my attitude, my behaviours. And they would say, "There's your 90 quid discharge grant, off you go, Roland, stay clean." And I would go and score on the way home.
Of course you would. Yeah. What's happened in that period of weeks that's made you feel like a hit? Nothing's positive. You've been waiting to get out to feel good again. We're it's interesting. I work for University of Central Lancashire, UCLan in Preston, and that's where my my professorship comes from, my honorary chair, and they do huge amounts of work in working with people. I think they refer into you as well, as an organisation, to support students in crisis, and also to get students back in, to give them something positive when they've had a criminal record. So rather than demonizing it, they're saying they don't judge the history. They're trying to give positivity back, a structure to that person that allows them to have that feeling of worth without obtaining that illicit worth that they get from drugs. And that's where we've got to go as a society. We've got to stop punishing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, like I say, face the consequences, but punishment alone, or demonizing drug or mental health or any of these issues, and we'll come on to mental health in a minute, and self-medication, it just doesn't work. No. It does not work at all. And moving on to what I was just saying about mental illness, the majority of people that are using drugs are in some way self-medicating for something that's wrong in their life, and they're using it to escape either their past, their mental trauma that they're going through, or where they find themselves in life, that escapism, or that crutch of medication. And if we don't deal with that and supply therapeutic intervention for that, then that person is going to carry on that cascade of self-medication.
Totally. One of the things that someone put to me was, if you don't have all your ducks in a row in your life, if you've got all your ducks in a row in your life, then you're an awful lot less likely to want to use drugs, in a sense. For me, if my life's all cool over here, I'm not going to, and I still think of sometimes, I sometimes see people using crack or under the influence, and I think there's a little meerkat in me that goes, oh, that looks nice. Because my life's relatively manageable, I'm like, no, I don't want to sacrifice this peace and this goodness that I've got here just for that short thing.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. And one of the things, I could speak to you all day, Stuart, being honest with you. We've had some cool conversations and gone down some pathways. However, time is a thing, and we need to acknowledge that, don't we? Can I ask you, if you can succinctly give me 2 take-home messages, please, for people watching? One being for people who are trying to recover or seek help for their substance misuse or treat their addiction. Do you have a take-home message that you could give to those people?
Yeah. So I think my take-home message is, however bad you think it is, however at the end point you think you are and there is no way back, I can absolutely guarantee there is always hope and there is always an opportunity.
Beautiful. Good. Thank you. And the second take-home message, if you could, for a message for people who are trying to help other people recover or get well.
So I think it's really important to remember that what you're seeing is a behavior. You don't have to like that behavior. You just love the person. And remember, when that person falls backwards or falls down or relapses, that's not your fault. That's part of the behavior. And again, understand that falling back in the behavior is not a failure. It just means we're just going to take a little bit longer, and there is always hope.
Brilliant. Cool. In the remaining few seconds, I just want to thank you for your input and I would term it kind of wisdom and a great attitude towards this kind of stuff. So thank you for taking time out to talk to us. Hopefully, on a personal level, I would like to spend more time speaking to you and kind of exploring some stuff. I hope we can do that. But thank you, Stuart.
No, thank you. And I've really enjoyed it and happy to come back at any time.
Brilliant. I'll take you up on that, honest. Good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching, and follow, like, all that kind of capitalist style stuff. Cool.